Hey everybody, it's Chris Jepson coming at you with the after-action report for the June 19th Nebraska region event out at the Lincoln Air Park. This is going to be the first video that I do, well, this is going to be the first after-action report that I do as a video. So if you much prefer this method to the long-winded posts that I normally do on various forums, go ahead and let me know. You can let me know in the comments or you can let me know on the forums. Just bear with me as we go through this. I'm going to try and keep this analysis pretty short. Again, this is the June 19th event at the Lincoln Air Park on the Nationals concrete. The course, I believe, was designed by Roger Johnson for the FSAE event that occurred earlier in the week. And it was modified by the event master to open it up and make it more friendly to cars. My understanding, I guess, is that the FSAE courses are generally pretty tight and not car friendly, so I'm glad they opened it up just a little bit. Maybe they opened up a little bit too much, but we'll talk about that as we go on. This is Justin and I's best runs from the event. We're still running the same car setup with the BMR front sway bar in the softest position. Bridgestone RE71Rs, the 285s all the way around. We're running 34 for the front tire pressure and 36 for the rear tire pressure. On that, we found that the tire pressures, any lower doesn't seem to really increase grip, but it makes them wear way worse. But that's just our experience with them with the front sway bar. Temperature was about 97 degrees, and humidity, I want to say, was in the upper 60s, low 70s. It was hot and it was humid, and we ran at the very end of the day. Unfortunately, with the temperatures also meant that my phone was overheating, and because I used my phone to record with SoloStorm, none of the videos for this event came out. I do have one video, but it's from my run number 3, and for some odd reason it's been associated with every run, including Justin's, so I don't know what's going on there. Hopefully we can get it resolved for the next event, and certainly before the Midwest Divisionals at the end of July. So F Street, in F Street we had a number of different cars. We had all the usual competitors with Michael Feeney in his 2016 Camaro, obviously Justin and I in my 2015 Mustang, Matt Granger in his 2005 BMW M3, Don Knope in his 2007 Shelby GT, John and Ann Lorando in their 2016 Mustang GT. We also had West Pierce and Ryan Daniel who came out. West Pierce was in a 2016 Mustang, Ryan Daniel was in his white BMW M3, and then Kelly Knope was co-driving with Don Knope, her dad, in his 2000 Ford Shelby GT. So 10-car class and the usual tight competition with absolutely no qualms about saying that. My very first run, I went out and apparently with cold tires, which that was a battle we fought, managed to lay down a hero run, for lack of a better phrase. I ended up running a 69.988, which stood in first place all the way up until Michael Feeney ran his very last run, in which he took first place by about a quarter of a second. So run number 1 was my best run, and I didn't seem to improve after that. In fact, my last run I ended up hitting 3 cones in an attempt to try and even just replicate that time. I think a large portion of the reason for that has to do with the tire heat issue. At local events, we're running 3 heats with about 101 to 115 entries, so there's about 33 drivers per class, with our heat having a whole bunch of 2-driver cars, so there wasn't a whole lot of real big downtime. In fact, we pretty much scrambled to get the tires sprayed down, and we were spraying down the tires constantly. I mean, whenever we had time to do it, we did it. Sometimes we did it 2 or 3 times. So I think that really helped on run number 1 to lay down that 69.988 when everyone else on their first runs was running 72s. Feeney ran a 72.745 on his first. Justin ran a 72.254. Lots of 72.8s. I mean, it was just an oddball run, and I thought it was a timing error, truth be told, because it's very rare that I ever run a fast run number one that takes the class at first. It's just very rare. But like I said, tire heat I think had more to do with that than really any talent in driving. So we'll use that as the excuse for the hero run on run number one. Cold tires that managed to make it all the way through the run without overheating. I'm gonna go ahead and we'll show you the data between Justin and I all the way through once, and then we'll break it down. So here's the course and how it laid out. Starting up here. This section here is a bunch of high-speed offsets. They were actually wallums, but they were angled in. They weren't like straight wallums that were in line with the direction of travel. Here is a quick set of offset, I call them yeehaws, followed by a very, very tight turn back onto the course. And there was a number of different lines to take through there, and Justin took the line I walked originally, but I changed my line after watching John Hunter walk it. This section was an incredibly tight and pinchy set of left-right, and that's a classic example, and I'll go over it when we go through the run by run, the corner by corner, just how tight it actually was and how it was the classic example of the give some to gain some. Another tight S thrown in a course. This is like the fourth event or third event in a row that's been a thing. And then a quick slalom before the finish. Alright, so let's get the sky reset here. By the way, I'm in the green on this and Justin's in the red in case you don't see it up there at the top. So coming off at the start, Justin and I started off pretty much exactly the same. Really no difference there. Justin's slightly better. Coming into turn 2, though, I had a slightly wider line than he did, and as a result, it really opened this up, and I was able to get on the throttle a little bit earlier and have a lot more speed coming through. In fact, you can see right there, our time split is only 0.02 of a second, but I'm a full 3 mile an hour faster than he is coming out of this corner. These high-speed offsets then really kind of left you with a choice. There was a good opportunity to shift about midway through into third if you really wanted to. This whole first run, I didn't shift to third at all. I stayed in second the entire time, specifically because I wasn't sure if there was going to be enough time to really shift to third. And in later runs, I did shift to third and tried downshifting, and it ended up not working out that well. But you can see through the times, I'm starting to pull a little bit further ahead of him. And he made a big lift, and then I just kind of continued to get away from him there. And this really opened up. This is one area that once I got out in front, there's only one area where he kind of caught up to me. But for the most part, this gap remains through the whole thing. So those high-speed offsets, you can see I just had more speed through the whole thing, and as a result, that killed my time through there and gave me a almost 0.4 second lead on him here. He carries a little bit more speed coming into this little kink before this left-hander at turn 3. Again, I take a slightly flatter line than he does, and it opens up this course a lot. This is one of the few courses where there was plenty of opportunity to take the road course line, for lack of a better phrase, rather than the typical autocross line, and you can see that I use that to my advantage. So he carries a little bit more speed coming in, but takes the traditional autocross line with the tight to the cones and not doing the outside, inside, outside. And this course somehow that worked. The outside, inside, outside worked a little bit better. So I had a little bit more speed coming in, and the time gap comes out, but he ends up making up just a fraction of a time coming into these offsets, and I think he ends up carrying more speed because he's a little bit more confident in the car than I am, and that's just his driving experience. And there you can see he caught back most of that time. Now this tight turnaround there was multiple line choices to it, and as I said, going through it, just watching it, really, he took the line that I was going to take originally, but I watched John Hunter take his course walk, and he drives a CSP Miata, and he took this really wide line, and I was like, man, that's really kind of odd. But when thinking about it, it actually made a lot of sense, because it opens up this next section after this turnaround into this big open straight. I mean, there's just a slight kink, and I really wish I had the video to show you on this. There's just a slight kink to the right, but it's otherwise just very open, and if you set it up right, it's essentially a straightaway. There's very little, if any, right-hand turn to it, and it was really kind of interesting. So I focused on doing that, and as you can see, again, Justin catches up just a little bit coming into the corner, and then as soon as we start getting on the gas, I start to get away from him just a little bit. Really, his line choice didn't hurt him that much, and I think part of that is that whole distance versus speed thing, and he came out just wide enough. So maybe I went out a little bit too wide there. That's probably a fair thing to say. Now this corner is a corner that was set up so that there was nothing preventing you from taking this wide entry line. And in fact, if you took this wide entry line all the way past the chalk mark, it actually allowed you to really flatten out this corner and carry a lot of speed through the corner. Now, Justin on the straight, you can see back here in the speed data, you can see where I hit the rev limiter back here, and I was on it for a good full second. Now he shifted to third, but he only gained himself about 1.5 miles per hour faster. So 1.5 miles per hour faster by shifting, and he really didn't get enough time on that to actually take advantage of shifting to third. And then he carried third gear all the way through this next corner and downshifted before the quick little S-kink there. I don't know that necessarily helped him. He did make up a large amount of time, but I came out of that just a little bit better than he did. And this is where he actually passes me. And this is one of the classic examples of giving up a little bit to gain a lot. Coming into this section, it was very tight. It's a 28-mile-an-hour corner, which is very slow for an autocross. When you come into it, it's all straight, but it turns almost completely back on itself. It's almost a set of two 90-degree corners, but not quite. And so you can see the slowdown. You can see he actually gets ahead of me, and he actually gets almost a full tenth of a, he gets, I guess, over a tenth of a second, but on average about a tenth of a second faster than me. But his extra speed that he carries through, almost 2.5 miles an hour, actually forces him into a much wider line through this next corner. And in doing so, he doesn't get the advantages of all that extra speed because he's covering much larger amounts of distance. So that was a perfect example of giving up a little bit to gain a lot. And you can see that the time has now switched back, and I'm now almost 0.3 of a second ahead of him again. And because I didn't have to take such a wide line, I could actually use the car. I could get on the power a little bit earlier and open up this next section with power. And speaking of power, coming into this, you can see in the speed data that Justin is on the gas and then he lets off. Okay, that's no different than what I did. I did the same thing. But when it came up, he got a lot faster and had to do a big lift, whereas I just kept accelerating on a much lower pace. And that's actually going to help. Now I've gone from 0.3 of a second to almost 4.5 of a second faster than he has on average. Then we get into a constant radius right-hander. And Justin just carries more speed than me. I mean, that's becoming a fact of life. He's a lot more confident in the car's grip than I am. It's still relatively close. He gets on the gas a little bit sooner than I do, ramps it up, and he makes up a fairly decent amount of time. Now we're down to just over 0.175 in terms of split time between the two. But once again, he takes the tighter line with the less distance, while I take a slightly wider line and open this up. And you can see what effect that has in the speed graph. I am now on the gas much sooner than he is, and I'm able to achieve my highest speed. And there's the rev limiter. It says 59.8, and I think that's more of a coincidence than anything. The speed actually is about 59 even, is about where it is, or 58.8, I guess, if you really want to call it that. But so you can go back and look at this one more time. So coming in, I'm only ahead of him by less than 1/10 of a second. Okay, less than 2/10 of a second. He gets closer. Now I'm on the gas sooner, and look at the time, just boom. So I end up almost a full 4/10 of a second faster than he is coming out of there, just because I took a slightly wider line going in there. Now the final corner, a little bit of a left-hander. He carries a lot more speed through there. And then the slalom to the finish. And there's kind of the run analysis. Now, there were several places in here that in later runs I shifted to third. One of them was this big open section, and truth be told, you could. I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I go and look at the logs, I probably carried a little bit of extra speed through here. Not enough to really make the shifting worth it. Now me, I've never done any heel and toe downshifting. I've not had good luck practicing it because, well, I've got big feet, and the pedals don't really work out too well for people with big feet, and I haven't invested in any pedal covers. I'm not even sure if pedal covers are legal in F Street. I'm sure they're not, because reasons, but I've not really had good luck with heel-toe downshifting. So for me, heel-toe downshifting is actually slower, even under pressure like this, than just carrying speed. So, or carrying second gear and leaving it in second gear. Did it make a huge difference? Obviously not. Coming into these sections down here, I also shifted to third during one run, and then downshifted into second to get through this, and then shifted into third, and then tried to carry third. And I found it just, the car bogged way too much coming into this, coming out of this corner here. Just didn't seem to have the accelerative capability coming out. And I think it was in a really bad part of the torque curve. I'd have to go actually pull up the RPM graph and see if it really made any bit of a difference. But and then you had to downshift into this really tight section to try and get slowed down, and it didn't work out for me. And as you saw, there was only about a second difference. I was on the rev limiter for about a second, so he never really got to use full advantage of third gear and really carry a lot of speed going through there, really get a lot of speed. It only ended up being about 1.5 miles per hour faster, but for a much briefer period of time, and he kind of foobarred himself then on the exit there. Those were really the only places that third gear was really useful. This first part, this second little leg, and then this little leg. And as I told, my entire first run, which is the run I stood on as my fastest run, that had first place all the way up until Mike Feeney's very last run, it was all in second gear. So not a huge loss on this course. There was plenty of places that third gear might have been advantageous, but it ended up not. Had you set up the corner before it correctly, it might have been advantageous. But really, it doesn't seem that it truthfully did make a huge bit of difference. So anyway, there's the run analysis. I'll go ahead and bring up the results here. So here's the F Street results. You can see Michael Feeney. His fastest run prior to his last was a 70.741, so I had almost 0.8 of a second ahead of him, and he was in, I want to say, third or fourth going into his last run. And then he pulls out this. Like, where the heck did that come from? It was a great run and did a good job. In a quarter of a second, I can't fault him on that. He just drove a hell of a drive. So congrats to him on getting first. You can see we got Justin Eccles and I took up second and third in the same car, running the wrong sway bar according to some. And then an M3, E46 M3 nonetheless. So, kind of makes you wonder. And then you can see that we had a smattering of cars with better handling characteristics than power. And I think this goes to show that F Street is very, very much so one of the more interesting classes out of all of the autocross classes in terms of car parity, because here we've got a huge number of cars. Now granted, none of us are super duper alien drivers, but we're all good solid mid-pack drivers, and the split time between top to bottom, it's really not too shabby given the different varying levels of skill as we get towards the bottom end of the trophies. But so that's the raw times. Let's go ahead and pull over the PAX times now. This is the highest finish I have ever had at a Nebraska region event with this much talent at the event. Highest finish I've ever had at a Nebraska region event. And F Street took 2, 3, and 4. We had a 2, 3, 4 finish. And only them pesky Porsches taken first. But otherwise, a really good event. Really enjoyed the course. I had some reservations about walking sections of the course. It just didn't feel like it was going to be that much fun of a course just by walking it. But it ended up being a whole lot of fun. You know, in terms of lessons learned from the data, from everything that we've done to the tires through the whole thing, I really think investing in a second tire sprayer and just absolutely hammering the tires as much as we can at local events is going to be a requirement. We didn't run into too many heat issues at Spring Nationals. We did still spray between runs, but you know, everything, you have a minimum of 5 minutes guaranteed, and it usually took a little bit longer than that to get back and around. This, you know, local events, it's hectic. It's about as quick as getting in and out and spraying down the tires and checking pressures, and then you're going again. So that says a lot. You know, things that I'm going to take into the next event, I think the next event is another Nebraska region event, the first part of July. Well, let's go look. Yeah, July 10th. So the next one is the next solo event. And I think what I'm going to focus on there is carrying more speed. You know, that's one area that I've been struggling with all year, is carrying speed through these high-speed sweepers and even through some of the lower-speed sweepers and judging what speed I can carry them in. Applying gas earlier, you know, that has some downsides. This car with the front sway bar, it doesn't really tolerate mid-corner gas applications. With all that weight transferring to the rear with the front sway bar, it starts to push as soon as you start to try and correct your line a little bit with throttle. You actually have to step past the rear tire grip, and that has some added disadvantages. So, you know, with that in mind, we'll go ahead and focus on that carrying speed through corners. But anyway, that's my analysis of the event on the 19th from the Nebraska region. If you guys have any comments or questions or complaints, I guess, go ahead and post them. Hopefully I can answer them. If you guys prefer this method, like I said, let me know. If you don't, I'll go back to typing long posts. It doesn't bother me one way or another. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.